Good evening, one and all. I apologize for the lateness, and I just need to get some of our housekeeping done. Josh, am I coming over loud and clear?
Yes, you are. Good evening.
Wonderful. Good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you're joining us from, welcome. Welcome to this brand new platform that has been created by the Kaieteur Radio management team that wants to talk about what is important for Guyana, wants to talk about what's important for you. So let me welcome you. Today marks a day in which Glenn Lall has decided to take yet another step towards presenting himself and his belief, his arguments, which are sound and proper, to the public, especially those beliefs and arguments, but not limited to, but especially as related to oil and the oil deals that Guyana got and didn't get. This show, ladies and gentlemen, shall feature guests who shall engage in discussions aimed at lifting our lot as a Guyanese people. We cannot and must not feel that the politicians hold the key to our prosperity. Arguably, this government and any government has the ability to influence our livelihood, to shape the future of our sons for our sons and daughters. But therein lies the main concern for many Guyanese and Guyanese like Glenn Lall and his team. That is, what is at stake for our sons and daughters. Long after the current lot and the past lot of politicians would have been interred with the dust that make up of our soil. So today, we find that Mr. Glenn Lall starts this journey, and I'm here to help to get this journey started. I am, in a way, a guest to this show also, this Glenn Lall show. To kick us off today, we want to plunge right into things. We want to plunge into a discussion on what is now the blood flowing in Guyanese veins and Guyana's veins that is called oil. The one thing that is of the main concern to each and every one of us, oil. Ladies and gentlemen, just to put it quickly into perspective before I ask Mr. Lall and his team to speak. Approximately 150 million US dollars have been received from cargo lifts and royalties so far. That is about 10% of Guyana's 2020 budget. The question one can seriously ask, is that the best we could have gotten? Is it the best we can do? Is it a good deal? Are we in a position of weakness or strength by weak or hungry politicians? And so let us get into our discussions, ladies and gentlemen. We have here tonight with us two members of the Kaieteur News family, Ms. Kiana Wilberg and Kemal King. And of course, the head of that family, a man who for over 25 years has been at the helm of the Kaieteur News outfit that has shaped a lot of thinking in this country, that has shaped a lot of persons' ability to evolve into independent thinking in this country. Glenn Lall has seen many governments come and go, and he is in a position to say whether he feels some of the business deals we've gotten has been good or bad. Remember, the backdrop of Mr. Lall has been his engagement in business, an astute businessman, outspoken person, and certainly he is going to be part of our discussion on this Glenn Lall show here on and here from. So ladies and gentlemen, let us talk oil. Mr. Lall, welcome to you on your very own show, sir, the Glenn Lall show. You are the driver of this ship. And as we get started, I would like to turn to you first, Mr. Lall, to ask you, sir, with all of your decades of business, astute leadership of the Kaieteur News under your belt, why have you decided to come to radio? Why is Glenn Lall taking this oil fight on? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Glenn Lall show as we now hear from Mr. Glenn Lall himself.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Yog. That's a first and beautiful question you ask. Why did I come? I have been constantly bombarded with phone calls and questions as to what is happening. What is happening, Glenn, with our wealth? And it it gets to me so much that I can't take it anymore. I just have to get here, get on this radio, and explain to this nation what is happening with their wealth. I want to begin with a story that lives within me onto this moment. A few years back, as soon as Schlumberger began their oil operation at Houston, I was having a drink at Princess Hotel. And a big white guy was sitting at the bar, he alone. And I was there with friends, and I saw him sitting and thinking, so I tell the barman, I said, give him a beer. And from one beer, it went to 3 beers. And the guys, I cheers with him from my table to the bar. And he came over, and he introduced himself, and we end up chatting. Dr. Yog, you may not believe, the man could not even pronounce Guyanese. The man said he wished he was a Guineas. I said, why? And he began to tell me, this I'm telling you a few years back, began to tell me the amount of oil. If we only know the amount of oil they found out there, we are bigger, we are greater, we are richer than Dubai, than Saudi Arabia. The man even asked me what type of vehicle I'm driving. And when I told him, he said, man, by now you guys should have been driving brand new Mercedes-Benz each. And having, from then to now, Dr. Yog, having seen on a daily basis what and how these wealth are being siphoned off and just given away, it breaks my heart, Yog.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And hence I have to speak out. Every day in our editorial meeting, I don't know if you would have ever been there, but we discuss these matters. And sometimes I want to cry for this country. Every day I pick up this newspaper, I want to cry for this country. And we are not getting anything from it. A newspaper friend from Suriname, came over here last week. And when I began to tell him what Guyana is getting, the man says, no, Glenn, no. No. I said, yes, we are getting less than 2% from ExxonMobil. And the man was like in shock. The man said, Glenn, you got to get out there. Stop complaining. Get out there and let the nation know that Guyana basically gets nothing. The man said, all Suriname people are talking about Guyana going to become the next Dubai. I said, no, Guyana will not become the next Dubai. Guyana will become the next Doom Boy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Mr. Lall, I hear you. And for a lot of Guyanese people, sir, I mean, yours truly, and a lot of people, we have seen the front page comments, we have seen the various articles that you have been carrying, we have seen the writings of Kiana and the team. An excellent job. But for a lot of Guyanese people, there seems to be a disconnect. Would you agree, sir, that there is a disconnect with what Guyanese think should be oil and should be the concern of the government and the people versus what you know that we should be the Dubai?
Yog, that's a beautiful question. What the people should do. What the people need to first understand that this sector, the oil sector, is not large. This oil sector is humongous. It's not a small entity. It's not a small business, a cake shop, a shoe store, or a parts store. It's huge. In every sector of it lies room for corruption, skullduggery, and scampishness.
Mhm.
Writing, I have a beautiful team here on board, you, that has been trying their best. They put it out so beautifully daily. But guess what, yo? The ordinary folks cannot understand it that way. You have to actually
Mhm.
speak to them and tell them, well, here, this is what is going on. You know, you began talking about 150 million US dollars Guyana got so far. Dr. Yog, $150 million can't even buy a couple candies for feed the children in this country. So these are
Correct.
things we shouldn't be talking about. We have to let the nation know that there are billions of US dollars in wealth that we have. But instead, we are collecting chump change. That's what people need to
Mhm.
know. And
Correct.
I wish you that I don't want to put media people down. I wish that media people can take some time and get on board, get to understand what is taking place. You know,
Mhm.
when you look at the answer after exposing so much on the Kanji and Kaieteur blocks, when you look at the answer that Vice President Jagdeo says that Ramatar and Robert didn't break any law and there was no corruption. You know, when I look at that thing, when we discuss it, it's like I'm saying to my mind that this man is sick in his mind. To tell this nation no
But
laws
Mr. Lal,
has been broken and no
Mr.
corruption
Lal, just
in,
before we
in giving
right.
away 2 oil blocks, the Kaieteur and Kanji, to persons that they say they don't never met, to persons who
Mhm.
have no cash in their hand, no experience whatsoever, to just throw 2 oil
Okay.
blocks that value billions in Brazil. In Brazil, Dr. Yo, a slightly bigger oil block, Brazil was able to rake in 700 million US in signing bonus alone. And I'm not
Mhm.
talking about, and in
Mhm.
Kaieteur Kanchi, I'm not talking about signing bonus. I am talking about what we could have gotten had we thrown that on the open market for tender. We could have gotten
Right.
already billions of US dollars in our hands. Instead, we're begging every day, Dr. Yoke. We're begging every day. Every day you open the paper, you're begging. They're begging for 100. I don't even want to go down this road. Let's go back and stick with what our oil business, Yoke.
Right. Right. But Mr. Lal, just before we get on with the discussion of the blocks and stuff like that, just for the sake of our viewers and listeners out there, and Kiana, if you and Kimal wants to jump in at this, is
Yeah.
please do, because here are a couple of things that I would like to connect here now. Now, yours truly, I would have interviewed persons in room 592 and persons from APNO AFC. I remember one gentleman speaking on behalf of APNO AFC said a bad deal is better than no deal. I mean, I was flummoxed. I was, thrown out by a politician accepting something like that, that a bad deal is better than no deal. But Glenn and Kiana and Kimal, the politicians have all said that, listen, when we started, we didn't know about oil. There was no oil there. We didn't know if there was oil there. And so we started to share out these things to see how we were. What's your response? And especially, Kiana, in terms of your writings and your investigative approach and so forth that you would have undertaken so far, what is your gut feel to what has been happening? Did the politicians know? They didn't know? And then we'll get to the bigger questions, of course.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Yoga. I'd like to say that your introduction to the show was really splendid, and I really think that we need to thank the publisher of Kaieteur News, Mr. Glenn Lall, for embarking on this initiative
Yeah.
to bring the layman's perspective of oil and gas, because we at Kaieteur News, we try our best to break down the academic approach to the subject matter, but sometimes that's not always effective. Sometimes you need to come on radio and have that conversation, that heart-to-heart conversation. So that said, you do ask a very important question there, and you've put forward some important points. And what I'd like to say is, before I even give my opinion, I don't think anyone in their right senses who does not know how to build a house would go ahead and try to borrow money from a bank and build that house on their own without consulting the right experts. No one in their right senses would do that. So if you're dealing with a national
Perfectly.
asset, if you are dealing with a national asset and you don't know anything about oil, I think the right thing to do would be to find the people who know about oil and gas and to ask them for their advice. This is Guyana. It's now embarking on something that's very new. How do we ensure we avoid the mistakes made by other countries? How do we get the best value for what we have? What is it that we can expect to get? How do we go about marketing and putting provisions in place that would protect our interests? All of those are things that we can do. And it's not as though, even though the politicians of the day may claim ignorance, there are many people who saw from the time Guyana made a discovery, every Tom, Dick, and Harry was rushing to Guyana. I want to give you advice. This is what you should do. This is what you shouldn't do. There were people running down to Kaieteur News. Listen, this is what Guyana needs to get done. This is where you can find information. I'm talking about free advice from international experts that Kaieteur News received. So there's no doubt that much of this would have trickled down or made its way to the offices of our politicians. But that's just my perspective, and I give the floor over to
Understood.
my colleague so that he can give his perspective as well.
Kimal, your take on what's where we are with this thing, and what's your opinion on how it's been handled so far by the politicians?
Thank you, Yog. I also want to thank you for your opening. I thought it was splendid. My view is that since I've started working at Kaieteur News and I've been covering this sector, what I've noticed is that every single day, up to maybe a few days ago, Kaieteur News is finding out new information about how political actors have handled the issuances of awards that has happened, say, in 2015 and 2016. So the first problem there is that we have political actors who are not willing to be transparent about how they are conducting their due diligence in order to issue these awards. And so it boggles my mind. While we were having a meeting with Mr. Lall the other day, I was telling them about something new I read in a document. And my first thought was, for us to get to a place where we can properly and prudently manage our natural resources, we first need to get to a place where our government is not hiding details from us about what is going on in our oil sector. So today, Kaieteur News has to be publishing information about how there are red flags in the handling of the Kanji and Kaieteur Awards. What Kaieteur News should be doing is reporting that the government was able to secure a deal that has gotten us billions of dollars. We should not be in the place right now where we are scrambling to find out what our leaders did a few years ago. We cannot move forward with the prudent management of our resources if we have to keep playing catch up because our politicians don't want to tell us every time they make a move. The first place that we need to start from is a place of transparency.
Well
Thank
said.
you. Well said, Kimal. And Mr. Lal, I want to come back to you. Now, this is all very, very ticklish. And Mr. Lal, you would have been at the pinnacle of, the Kaieteur Radio and Kaieteur News operation, where you would have had the dart board on your back or middle of your forehead,
Yes.
attracting every kind of attack that you could possibly attract. But sir, before we get into the oil, Mr. Glenn Lall, successive politicians have failed. Is it purposive or is it ignorance? What's your view, sir?
That's a beautiful question. Before I answer that question, I want to touch a little on what my colleague Kemal talked about. Transparency, transparent. Our leaders being transparent. The question you asked me, why I come on this air, why I come on the radio, and I think that I'll be coming on this radio a lot because our leaders are not being transparent in anything they do. And this is not the PPP, this is the PNC, this is the AFC and the PPP. All the political players of this land, if you have noticed, they have been so silent. Take, for instance, we carried for a number of weeks the red flags associated with the Kaieteur and Kanji oil blocks. You notice they said nothing. The PNC for the last couple of weeks held 3 press conferences, and when they were questioned as to their role in the oil sector, Joe Harmon said on 2 occasions that yes, they're putting together their oil team to face the press. We have been asking them, come on board, let us hear you, because you were part and parcel of this giveaway.
Of course.
And the crap that is taking place with the people's wealth. The PPP did the same thing. All these things we were talking, Jagdev held a press conference 2 days ago, and what he said, no laws broken, no corruption. You give away oil blocks that worth billions of American dollars, and you telling this nation, you telling people that is suffering, people who can't get a proper meal when they come, you telling them that you didn't broke no law? Would he give away his mansion? Would he give it would Robert, Donald, and Jagdev give away their mansion to a beggar with no money in hand to go sell their mansion and keep the money? No, they wouldn't do that. But guess what? They did that with our oil blocks. Give it away to people who have no cash whatsoever, who are broke son of a bitches. Are you telling me no laws broken?
So,
are you telling me no corruption? Man, let the people decide that.
Correct. So, Mr. Lall, as we get into the discussion, I just want to put something in perspective for the people out there, viewers and listeners. Look, we all know Guyana is going to experience 25% growth this year and 54% growth next year. According to what Mr. Lall and his team has been putting forward to us, that growth could have been triple that amount. In other words, are we in a position, ladies and gentlemen, that we are given $20,000 and we are very happy with it, whereas we could have been given $20,000 per week, and imagine what place we would have been in? Are we in a position where persons have to go to work in whatever conditions at depressing wage rates, whereas you could have been exponentially stronger? And Mr. Lall, this is where your concern for the people comes in then, sir, because you have said today on your front page, yeah, no laws were broken, but dreams were. And Kemal and Kemal and Tiana might correct me with my language here, but I think the dreams of future generations would have been shattered because we have gotten exponentially less than we ought to. But Mr. Lall, to your main point, sir, your main concern and your tears, as you said earlier, are being shed for the loss of what is versus what should have been. Am I right, sir?
Dr. Yo, can you repeat?
One second.
Sure.
I missed you the last part of it, but I got the gist of your question. You were asking, you were talking about what is there for Guyana.
Right. I just want to put it in perspective, Mr. Lall, to explain to the people out there that the concern is, yeah, you are getting something, but here is where you could have been. The what you have versus what you should be having.
Yes, I got you clear. I read a few times, is he on?
Yeah, yes, he's on.
Yeah.
All right. I read a few articles in the newspapers, and I heard a number of people talk. Economists, of course, I am no economist. I'm just a simple businessman, grew up in business. And I saw them writing and saying how each Guyanese should get $1 million a year from the oil, and a ton of crap these people writing in the press and talking about on different programs and so on.
Right.
Dr. Yog, I'm saying that if we can garner a proper deal with the wealth we have in this nation, every home, I repeat, can get in excess of $1 million a month. Do you know how oil countries live? Places like Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, their citizens are receiving checks every month just to stay home. Imagine the kind of wealth we have out there. We should have already been treated like that. We should not be listening our president and our vice president saying that we opening back the sugar industry and the rice farming industry for put our brothers and sisters to cut cane and plant rice. No. But this is the mentality of our political leaders. You put in people. President Ali, inauguration speech, says he will open back the rice, the cane factory and the cane fields,
right,
so that cane cutters can eke out a living. Could you believe this thing? The kind of wealth we have, you put in our brothers and sisters to go eke out a living by cutting cane? Man, if this is not a joke, if this is not a laugh story, I don't know what it is.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Lall. And ladies and gentlemen, I just want to remind you all, you are in tune to the Glenn Lall Show, where we tell it as it is. And Mr. Lall is in the spotlight. We are hoping as this show progresses, we are hoping that whenever we have the show on every Sunday night, that you can call in, your voice can become part of this show. And of course, we are hoping that a lot of other persons will be looking forward, not hoping, we're looking forward that every person who has an interest in oil can join the conversation. Join the conversation. Let us tell it how it is. Let us ensure that we can present arguments to the Guyanese people and those people who profess the knowledge of negotiations and of the contracts and of what the oil brings to us, then face the heat, face the fire, and tell the people exactly what is in it for them. Now, I just want to remind you all, those of you that don't know it for the first time. It is my understanding that Mr. Lall and his team, they're not speaking just out of what they would have read, but Mr. Lall would have paid out of his pocket to bring experts in the country to educate him and his team about the various matters with regards to oil. So now the question I have to ask as an independent person, if a newspaper leader and his team could pay and bring in experts to teach them about the important dimensions of oil, why haven't the politicians done the same? Why have we issued blocks and issued contracts, according to what Mr. Lall is sharing with us here, without consultations with persons all around the world, without consultations of with whom it matters? Because at the end of the day, the wealth that is contained in our natural resources belong to the people of this country and not to any particular group of politicians. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to get back to this discussion. Mr. Lall, I would like to push a little bit more now on what you mentioned at the top of the program, and that is the Kaieteur blocks and the Kanji blocks. And let us use those two for today as an explanation to the Guyanese people of the vast field represented by just two blocks. What has really gone wrong? Sir, at the risk of asking you to repeat yourself, take us through once again the Kaieteur block, the Kanji block, and this time we are speaking to the man in the street who has not paid enough attention to what has been transpiring here, sir. And let me say this, on behalf of all of Guyana, let me congratulate you for starting the show and for flying in the experts that you flew in to educate your team, especially about oil. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Yo. I just touching base back on what you said, that the government didn't see it fit to hire or to bring in experts to train and teach them about the oil sector or its industry. But Glenn Lall did. I did. I realized the wealth we have, and myself and my people need to know. We need to explain to Guyana and tell Guyana what we are dealing with. I don't think until now that Guyana is really getting it. The people is really getting it. People get understanding, the understanding of what is happening with their wealth, yo. I don't want to only focus on oil. I want to focus on all our natural resources. We would have reported on umpteen occasions about our gold industry, our timber industry, our diamond industry, our bauxite industry. Our bauxite, the companies, if I recall offhand, the companies have gotten more of the tax-paying dollars, you, listen to me carefully, I want you to understand what I'm saying. More of our tax-paying dollars in their pockets rather than what Guyana got from our bauxite. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Let me repeat.
Yes.
The concession galore that bauxite companies get worth more than what they pay to Guyana in royalties or taxes. So in short, in simple layman's term, Dr. Yo, these people fetching our wealth away and we are paying them to fetch it away. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Yes, sir. Mr. Lall, just pause for a minute. Just pause. Mr. Lall, just pause for a minute. Sorry to break into your train of thought there.
Go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, very important point I think we need to make a note of. When concessions, the total value of concessions are actually greater than the total benefit we get from the concessionaire, the total benefit we get from that contract, then we really need to sit up and take notice. Mm-hmm. That has been very clearly said, Mr. Lall. I'm sorry to have broken into your train of thinking, but please continue, sir.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So I was saying not only on the oil we're focusing on every sector. Like I just told you about the bauxite. The gold industry, I noticed Omai already here. You know, Omai came here. Omai, what did Guyana got out of Omai? Nothing. Now Omai is back with what? The same concessions galore. You have all these oil companies, them just oil, gold, diamond, and our timber. companies. Take Baishalin, for example. Baishalin is back. Baishalin is not only clearing up our forestry and Guyana gets nothing, but they are also in our gold and mining industry, eating up everything. What are we getting? I am not anti-foreigners. I am with any foreigner, any Guyanese who wants to come and invest and make money. But at the same time, Guyana must benefit, bro. Guyanese must benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, our
Correct.
politicians is filling their pockets, listen to me carefully, they're filling their pockets, and allow the foreigners to walk away, to fetch away, to carry away our wealth. So you and I, the ordinary folks out there, gets nothing.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Lall, I want to just go back quickly to the concessions because I don't want viewers and listeners out there to mix a couple of things up. Ladies and gentlemen, concessions are usually granted to encourage businesses to invest and invest heavily and invest more and continue to invest. For example, in telecoms, all the telephone companies, they get huge concessions on an ongoing basis. And so every business or investor may want to argue to get concessions. However, Mr. Lall's contention here has been that the concessions have actually been much more than the value and the benefits received by the Guyanese people from those persons, from those investors. Now, in the case of forestry concessions, in the case of gold concessions, and now in the case of oil concessions, the concerns being expressed here are whether the concessions are above and beyond what might have been equitably granted in other countries that had the same resources to exploit. Let me repeat that. Mr. Lall's concern is not that you have just given away concessions. That is another argument we can deal with another day. But whether these concessions, when compared to what concessions these same companies get in other countries, are above and beyond what they would have gotten in other countries. And that is something the politicians and, of course, the newspapers are going to pick up and answer about it. Mr. Lall, your point that you have made, I think Kaieteur News has been carrying a full page where you are putting some simple, very, very brief but succinct points, power-packed points out there. You're being very blunt in the way you're approaching the topics. And you have said that the leaders have given away US $1 billion blocks free. What caught me with that statement, sir? Free. And you have said earlier that they would not be selling their homes to persons with no cash in their pocket. Mr. Lall, can you and Kiana, please feel free, you and Kemal, to join into the discussion at this stage so that Guyanese can understand, has it really been free, sir? Is the free a matter of an comparative freeness in terms of they have gotten more than they're giving? Is it that people, and Mr. Lall, if you and Kiana can explain to people, what's this? Kiana, I want to go to you. Sorry, Mr. Lall. Kiana, what is this thing about beneficial owners? Mr. Lall has been carrying a fight that the beneficial owners ought to be made public. Tell us a little bit who are beneficial owners and why they need to be made public.
You want to take it? Or you want me to take it? All right. Brother Yog, let me get to that. And I think my next program I'll have to have 2-3 lawyers here. We're talking about free, right? We're talking about free. Give away for free.
Yes, sir.
I don't know, bro, but I think Guyanese are smart people. You gotta read through the line. Who gives away anything for free? Who gives away anything for free? Read through the line. Would you give me a car for free? No.
Well, I know that I never get anything for free, so
I'm gonna come back to that I'm gonna come back. We're gonna
Yes.
come back to that. Beneficial owners, right? All right. You're
Yes.
asking the beneficial owners, right?
Yes.
All right. But before I comment on that, let me go back to, you were talking about concession galore. We would have explained
Yes.
you over the years what Baishanlin was granted. Baishanlin was granted a series. We call it concession galore. These guys were allowed to bring in hundreds of trucks, excavators, and all these fancy timber logging equipment. And you know what they did? They didn't only come in to carry out their cleanup campaign with our forestry. They used those concessions and duty-free vehicles to take over our local industry transportation. Meaning they took over the transportation for even sand on the public road. So when our brothers or sisters would have went to the bank, took a loan of $15 million to buy a truck to do sand trucking business, Baishanlin get a full duty free on trucks, come in here and start working sand. So you tell me, can my local brother, our local brother and sister, match a free truck? No, you can't match the price there. So you see the advantage there, yo? It's like I get a duty-free car and you has to pay duty in your car. Can you run a fare equal to mine? No. I would always have advantage because I pay $3 million duty. You get me? So we go back now, and these are topics we can elaborate a lot more during the next programs. You asked the question about beneficial owners.
Wait, Mr. Lall, before you move on to the issue of beneficial owners, I'd like to add to what you've said there about the Baishanlin issue, because I remember back in 2015, we would have covered some of these stories, even going all the way up to Linden. So I want to add on this matter of concessions, Yog. When the government gives concessions to companies, it is with the understanding that they're going to use these concessions as a means to creating in-country value. And I'm going to give you an example of this. By Shenlin, they were given millions of dollars in tax concessions with the promise of establishing a wood processing facility, a state-of-the-art wood processing facility that would create hundreds of jobs for Guyanese. And you know what happened? They got the concessions and they brought in so many equipment that they were, they had it all over the place in different businesses and making millions more off of it. And when we got back to them about what happened to the promise of the wood processing facility, it was years and years and years of excuses that we got, to the point that we don't even have a wood processing facility right now. So that's just to give you an idea as to how much Guyana loses and how these people just get off scot-free. When they abuse the contract terms, they make several abuses for the concessions that they get, and they're just able to walk away while Guyana is left with nothing in hand.
Thank you, Kian.
So you were now moving on to the issue of beneficial.
Thank you. Yes. So let's get on with the issue of the beneficial owners. So people could understand out there, when you're reading about beneficial owners, what do we mean and how does it matter to us, Mr. Lall?
I know, beneficial owners. I'd love to be one of them. But it will be so difficult for us to get to that. That's one of the questions I would like to ask our politicians to answer. But it's sad. It's sad. The coalition government went in there for 5 years. They promised before they go there how they would have dealt with corruption. Do you know they went in there and instead they dealt with corruption, they themselves get corrupted? They knew. We just unearthed a paper that they knew what and how these blocks were just passed from hand to hand. And where are we? Where are we? We're nowhere. We're nowhere. But would we ever get to know who are the beneficial owners? You know,
Correct.
it's tough. It's tough because the way in which they went about with the blocks, it's very difficult for us to know. For those of you who don't understand beneficial owners, it's a highfalutin word, but it simply means who are the real owners. The people hands that the oil block falls into, that we keep saying Dookie, 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 and all these fancy names, Yuli Nelson and Chakasang and Loachi, they are not the owners. They are not the real players. The real owners is hiding. Dr. Yog Mahadev, the real owners is hiding behind companies in which they create in safe havens in places like
Bahamas, Cayman
Islands, Virgin Islands. Yeah. They set up companies there, Dr. Yog, and they're hiding their names through those companies. And guess what Dr. Jagdev said Thursday? Oh, he's going to go and get them. Well, I dare him. I dare the PPP, the PNC, and the AFC to go get those information for us. Because the nation needs to know. The nation needs to see who are the real players behind these oil blocks. Dr. Yog, Brother Yog. That's what we need to know.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct. And Kiana, from your writings, you and Kemal, is there a disclosure requirement? Has there been a disclosure requirement, or is it an expectation that the beneficial owners should be disclosed and made public?
Well, because of Guyana's promise or the pledge that it made to implement the standards of the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. And for those who are not aware, the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, it's a global body that requires countries to be transparent in their dealings, in the monies that they receive in the extractive sector, and that goes from gold to oil and gas to bauxite. All of the aspects or the components of the natural resources sector, the EITI requires that countries are supposed to say how much they're getting from these companies in terms of payments, and who are the people giving them the money, and who are the individuals benefiting from contracts that are awarded in this sector. Now, Guyana is a candidate member of EITI, and because we're part of that international club, we have to disclose by the end of 2020 the names of the individuals who are parties to contracts, whether those are politically exposed persons or not. And it's left to see if we will be able to meet that deadline. The vice president has said that he will be able to get this information out, so we're now watching.
Great. And Kemal, a quick question to you, sir. Guyana is not a stranger to having companies behind companies, or individuals behind companies, 4, 5, 6, 7 layers. I am not sure that Guyana has had much good history in terms of lifting corporate veils. We have not been litigious enough as a nation to lift corporate veils for the many companies. But Kimal, it's no strange phenomenon in Guyana that there are so many shadow companies and shadow individuals, is it?
No, it's not. And here's what is so unique about the oil sector. There is so much money passing through this industry that at every stage there's significant risk for corruption. So, in the case of trying to find out who is the beneficial owner of a company, there are so many elaborate schemes that these companies have thought up that even if you put down the beneficial owners of this contractor company on paper, you can go back to find out who is the beneficial owner of this company that owns this company. And it goes back and back, back and back. So if the GGMC finds out that the companies that are beneficial owners of, say, ExxonMobil or another oil major, there may be a politically exposed person that is not necessarily a beneficial owner of the company that owns the block. That person may be an owner of a company that owns another company that owns another company that owns the block. So they have devised these elaborate schemes that make it so difficult for us to get to that place where we can find out who are the real owners of the Kanji and Kaieteur block. And so when we ask the question, who are the real beneficial owners, you can put down a list of shareholders for me on paper. And we mean that. But what we also mean is, who was the person who sat down at a table in a room one day and decided to cook up an elaborate scheme so that when this block is given out, they ultimately receive the money that will pass through and through after transactions are made. So a person may not necessarily be a member of a company on paper, but they will benefit.
Thank you. Thank you, Kimal. Mr. Lall.
Piece to that, yo.
Yes, go on.
For instance, you have the Kanji and Kaieteur blocks. I don't remember which one is which one, but there's so much. The Kanji block is owned by Duki. Now, you have two people who registered the company. Chakasan and Yuli Nelson. These are the registered owners of Mid-Atlantic. In some stage, you see Edris Duki name kicks in. And then at a later date, you see Chakasan kick out and Loachi come in. And this is the game they're playing with you. They're just switching names, transferring names, and they keep flipping and flopping. And then this company buys into that company, and this company from Canada jump in, and then a company from Israel jump in, and when you check it, they got you going around in a circle, round and round and round and round. So when you're talking about beneficial owners, the real players, it will be so difficult for us to get it. But we will get it. Trust me. Guyana, trust me, we will get them. We will get all those deeds. We will get them.
Thank you, Mr. Lall. Ladies and gentlemen, please remember this is the Glenn Lall Show. It is where we tell it as it is, and our focus has been on the extractive industries with particular emphasis on the oil sector. We have been with you, tonight is a starting night. We have been with you for the past hour, and it's been quite interesting. And I must tell you, we can only grow from here, and we can only start to expand the discussion into the many facets of this oil industry that can be beneficial to us all. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, knowledge is power. Knowledge is key. The more you know as a people, the better for you. We must not let the politicians of this country, whatever political parties they're from, don't let them tell you what you need to know. Learn, and this is why Mr. Lall has decided to start this program, Tell It As It Is. Mr. Lall, as we're going to wrap up our program for tonight, being the launch night, let me congratulate you on behalf of the Guyanese people for taking this bold step forward. Yeah, being bold is no stranger to you, sir. You have been there, you have done it, and you continue to do it. But, sir, I want to ask you this question. We have spoken tonight about Kaieteur block and Kanji block. And as this discussion continues over the coming weeks, we'll be talking more about it. Where the Guyanese ordinary man in the street is concerned, sir, is this but a fraction of what we have to still talk about?
If it's a fraction.
Yes.
No joke
He's
in that
asking if it's
question,
still a
sir.
fraction of what we still have to talk
Brother,
about.
this is not, a fraction is not even a word we should be talking here. This thing, like I said, it's humongous. I was telling them this afternoon, before I came up on this radio, I telling the staff after our meeting, I told them, I said, my God, am I doing a Sunday show alone? This show should be on every single minute of the day, not an hour of the day. Every minute of the day. Dr. Yog, there's so much to speak on this issue, brother. If we don't get Guyana, if we don't get the Guyanese people on board, we will cat eat with dinner. Simple, straightforward like that. Cat will eat our dinner. Look, today's front page. Today's front page, you got 2-3 stories here. Listen to the headline. Kanji block owners extend tentacles deeper into the oil industry. You believe that? They are not satisfied with just owning the oil block. You hear me? I want you to understand what I'm saying, listeners. They already stretching their tentacles into other sector of the business. And guess what? The same oil block that they have, the Kanji, is giving them the contracts too. How you like that? Am I clear there, Dr. Yo?
Yes,
Huh?
yes. And let me just repeat this for.
Let me go again. The next headline: ExxonMobil continues to provide no evidence on billions claimed to be spent on local content. Local content. ExxonMobil has an obligation. All oil companies have an obligation to make sure Guyana and its people come first. They are spending money here to which we have to pay back. I want you to understand. We have to pay back. They said they spend billions on local content, but has nothing to show where and how they spend it on. You understand what's playing out? CGX got collision. Look at the next one, CGX. The same, another oil company that got the quarantine oil block, got collision to water down the work program for the quarantine block. Meaning, there's a structure, there's a program to which each oil owners have to carry out before extension is being granted. And they didn't carry out no work. Guyana should take back the damn oil block. But guess what the coalition did? The coalition went and instead putting back the same clause and conditions that they had before, them chaps just go and water it down. Make it more simple. So when you asked that question just now about if this is only a fraction, this is not even a fraction, bro, to what is happening in this land. And I would like to come every day, if I can find the time. Every single day I can speak for hours on this thing. Not only myself, but my colleagues here. They can speak for hours too on what is taking place here. Because, like I said, I would have brought in people, experts to train, to talk to us, and enlighten us. This is why I'm so passionate, and my colleagues too are so passionate of what we do when the day comes. Because we're seeing this thing very clear, crystal clear, that there's nothing in the bowl for us. This
Mm-hmm.
Dubai is, if we don't correct it, it will become a Dubai. That's all I'm saying, yo.
Right.
And every hour we can talk about it. You can
Got
call
you.
me every hour that I can speak on it. The different angles. Look, we talk about flaring. They're not fixing the flaring
Yes.
on to now. And you know what flaring can cause? Man, you'll be spending, you may very well have to find money to fly to the States to get yourself fixed if those things are not fixed. That's the kind of, you will be running to the hospital
course.
right now as we speak when I'm driving home at Houston, they're burning chemicals in the air there. That is unhealthy for us to breathe. I asked one of them to, I took a video, I took pictures of it. This is the kind of lawlessness that goes on in here. And this is not only in the oil sector, my friend. This is in every sector. And we can talk from now till whenever. But I plan to come back here. I plan to come. You just tell me when you're ready, and I'm ready. Give the introduction and
Great.
let's get on with it. The nation needs to know what's happening, my friend. And thank you.
you.
Thank you for hosting the program, yo. And let's
Thank
take it,
you,
bro.
thank
You
you.
got to come on board. You have to come on board so you understand, so that we can do a better presentation to the
Correct.
nation. The nation needs to know. They need to know.
Correct.
The newspaper is not doing enough. And then, like I said,
That is
other media houses not helping too. And they're not helping because they don't want to help. The same lack of consciousness of what is taking place with our wealth. They're not focusing on that.
correct.
You understand?
Well, yes. Well,
If we
Mr.
can
Lall,
get
the
them,
truth is that
if we can get our fellow media colleagues to get on board, to get a little understanding. You know, I went so far
Right.
that I even went out of my way and called media houses, call the reporters them. I said, come sit down, let's chat. Because I want to get them on board. I want to educate them. I want them to understand. Well, here, your fight is not about who chop who or who rob who. Your fight is about getting a daily bread, a proper bread, a bread that has butter, not butter and cheese, not a blank, raw, crude bread. And guess what? I'm not getting there. I am not getting there. Maybe you can help. Maybe somebody can help.
Right.
Somebody listening, they could tell their brother or their sister who's in the media, say, listen, you guys got to get on board with this thing. This thing belongs to us. Brother Yob, this thing belongs to us. It's our wealth. It's our wealth. It does not belong to the political players. It belongs to us, bro.
Of course.
Have a good
Of
night,
course.
bro.
Thank you. And the wealth certainly belongs to each and every Guyanese out there. Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you.
this has been the Glenn Lall Show, where we have focused on the extractive industry, a particular focus on oil. Let me thank Mr. Glenn Lall for making this airtime freely available to the Guyanese people to discuss what matters to each and every one of you. That is the wealth of this country, the wealth that can belong to your sons and daughters way into the future. Let me thank Kimal King and Keanu Wilbur for joining us here tonight and sharing their thoughts. We certainly look forward to continuing this discussion, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just touch on one quick point as we close. Mr. Lall has said, whatever we have discussed here tonight is a smidgen, an iota of something that is extremely huge, that is tremendous. His word has been humongous. This oil sector and the oil wealth that Guyana can have, that can present to each and every one of us. So, ladies and gentlemen, the wealth of oil, let me say this very clearly, belong to you, not to politicians, not to your leaders. It belongs to every man, woman, and child, and every lost cent that happens and occurs because of poor decisions comes out from your pocket. It's like as if you have $1 gazillion in your bank account and every bad decision removes money from your bank account. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a restless night knowing how much wealth you are losing. And stay tuned to Kaieteur Radio. Let me thank Joshua Van Slytman and the entire technical team for making this program possible. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great night. And we will talk to you again soon on this very important sector of the oil industry. Stay safe and have a great night, everyone.